Hello everyone and welcome to CappingTV and the final for the Champions Gauntlet. I am Jill Phoenix and with me is Peronius, and mate, it's been, what, 10 long weeks, but we're finally at the end of the road here.
Absolutely, it's been a long journey through the Champions Gauntlet, but finally two teams stand here at the end above the rest. ADSL2 and 4Giver, both formidable teams in their own right here, trying to walk away with the top prize here tonight, and it's going to be a ripper of a show tonight, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be a best of 7 or first of 4 maps, so it's going to be a bit of a slog, but I think both of these teams are definitely up for it. Just looking at the results that both these teams had to get to this stage of the competition in the semi-finals, 4Giver managing to get the 3-0 over, I think it was PPE Revival, whereas ADSL2 got the 3-1 victory over their opponent's Paradigm Drift. So both having reasonably, quite solid performances coming into this grand final. It's going to be very interesting to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to give some edge to ADSL2 here as the top seed coming in here. They did have an almost flawless run through the regular season, whereas 4Giver did drop a couple of games there. But at the same time, 4Giver have fought their way through. And if you, like myself, have seen some of the games of 4Giver, you know they are a dangerous team to come up against because they take the existing meta, they throw it out, they play to their strengths, and they force their opponents to try and adapt to them, and that makes it very difficult to play against them. So 4Giver can be a very dangerous team, very much capable of some upsets here, and maybe, just maybe, we'll be seeing that tonight, but still a long series ahead, as you said. For those of you not already familiar with the map pool here at the AOE Champions Gauntlet, we will be starting on Nepal for Control, which is always the starting map there. We'll then be going through the maps Escort, Hybrid, Assault, Control, Escort, and Hybrid in order, with the losing team of each round picking from 2 available map choices each round. But with that all to come in the future, we'll be heading into Nepal now. So we get started for this series.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one, and so might as well get yourself all nice and settled in and ready to go, because, as we've been saying, it's going to be a bit of an effort. We'll get into which maps are going to be available for each of the future disciplines once we get to them, but as you mentioned, we are now going to be starting out on Nepal, and over the course of this season, we've seen quite a few very back and forth, down to the wire kind of battles. I'm very interested to see if both these teams are going to end up having one of those kinds of matches here.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see what the teams bring out here. We will be starting in Sanctum, which is a bit of an enclosed space here. We can see a lot of Doomfists favoured here because of the tight spaces this map tends to bring, and Doomfist very popular in the current meta. It is referred to often as the double shield meta, and Doomfist has been known to care very little about shields. But interestingly, 4Giver are appearing to be rolling out here with a Pharah and a Bastion, which is very much not what you expect here. I know I did say they play their own game and they play it well, but even I am at a bit of a loss for words as they roll out here. Let's see how it uncovers as the teams make their first contact with each other.
Yeah, we saw that an awful lot from Tsukuyomi bringing out the Pharah last weekend to see if it's going to be able to work its magic here against the reasonably close range composition coming out from ADSL2 who are trying to navigate their way all the way around. It's playing a ring around the rosy at this point, as the Bastion is going to get the first kill of this series, taking down Flying Luigi's on that Sigma, and now that they're all very nicely set up, they're going to be able to start grinding down the rest of this team. And now with the point now available, it looks like it's going to be 4Giver getting that first fight quite handily for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Tsukuyomi is an absolute beast on this Pharah. He is easily one of the scariest Pharahs still remaining in the OCE region. And he's been known to force Pharah on maps that you would not normally see a pick, such as bring it to Nepal Sanctum. Now the pressure's on ADSL2 to come up with an answer for it, because there is a barrage primed and ready, and you know Tsuku's just going to drop in the moment there's an opportunity and unload that upon an unsuspecting team.
And it's very interesting to see how these teams are kind of dealing with each other's approaches. As Tsukuyomi gets a good early kill, taking down a Royal Rice, and this is going to stunt this next push coming in from ADSL2 They're trying to make their way in any way, shape, or form, but because of the scouting from that Pharaoh, understanding every angle that they're trying to come in at, 4Giver are able to just keep on moving around the map and keep themselves very safe here as another kill onto Royal Rice, as they have managed to get themselves to the point, but they're just not really getting too much in the way of these fights so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to rejoin the team there when the enemy is sitting between you and where your team's ended up. So Royal Rice in a bit of an uncomfortable spot there. That said, Rysel comes out with the Coalescent, does manage to get Ayawawa. The kill's still overwhelmingly coming through against. The res is there as well. Sugu does manage to get taken out by their own barrage there, but the damage is done, and this is going to be another team fight, very much in favor of 4Giver here, as we head above 80% on the clock. It's really only going to be one more chance at this, and ADSL2 Plus, they still don't have any answers.
Yeah, it's looking real rough. They just don't really have the tools to deal with this Pharaoh in the skies, and the fact that they haven't been able to chase down their opponents at all throughout this round so far, it is looking real rough, and it's at 98%. They need to be able to get to the point just to push it into overtime, and they do manage to do that. The Valkyrie has been popped by Wu Jing. See how the rest of this fight is going to play out. A lot of the ultimates are being dropped here from the side of 4Giver. They do end up knocking people around a little bit, as Ayawawa is going to get knocked off the map. Marker getting a nice kill early on, as Rysel does manage to take down one of those key targets in the Pharaoh, but the rest of the team is pretty well safe, and they are going to potentially clean out the rest of this round, as there's no one left. The Hamster was there, but was just pushed away enough in that first round, going quite cleanly over to 4Giver.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, as I was saying, 4Giver, they play their own game and they force other people to adapt to them. If anything, the fact that this is a best-of-7 series does not give them as much, or rather, it does make it harder for them, because it gives their opponents in ADSL2 Plus more time to work out the answer to this puzzle. So, maybe we see some early advantage from 4Giver, and then ADSL2 find a way to react, find a way to adapt and overcome the challenges. Maybe they don't, and maybe this just becomes 4Giver's series. It's way too early to be able to make any conclusive predictions at this stage. We'll be heading over to Village next. We're going to see Suku over onto the Mei this time instead. We're going to be playing a bit of Mei Reaper on the side of 4Giver, whereas we will have the Doomfist Reaper on their opponents at ADSL2 Plus as the teams make first contacts.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense going for this changing composition for the Village stage. As we see, there's a lot of close range fighting around the point. Already the first kill is going to go over to Marker on the side of ADSL2 Plus, taking down Keyboard Men. They do not have the resurrection this time around. Marker getting into the back lines, doesn't manage to get another kill in their favor. They do take down Tsukiyomi, and it looks like the first fight of this round is going to go quite nicely over to ADSL2 Plus.
And so the Reaper is still alive there. Moira Reaper alone on the point, just trying to get some damage in. He's not going to get any more kills from that, but he will get some more progress towards that Death Blossom. ADSL2 Plus getting control of the point first, putting themselves back in this series. It's no doubt going to be a bit of a relief to their players after such a one-sided round before, that they're able to get some stuff done here, and they definitely need that to keep morale high. Suku going down early there again is not great for 4Giver.
Yeah, the early kill, and now they're just running all the way through to all the way back to the spawn. They do manage to take down Ayawawa. Keyboard Man is going to be the next one to go down as ADSL2 Plus, with the change in styles from 4Giver. ADSL2 Plus are just really happy to play down and dirty with the brawling, with the close range. That's what their composition is designed to do, and they're doing it really well. And now that's going to force a little bit. You'd think a little bit of an adaptation coming out from 4Giver, but so far they're going to stick with what they know, as they do bring out the Flux from Flying Luigi's. Does manage to take, they do manage to take one down with Marker. Thank you for that one there for the Doomfist, as Marker is just having a field day with his back line here on the Doomfist in his second round. They do take down a couple of extra. Jasper is going to get in onto the action, as the fight is pretty much one and done there for the side of ADSL2 Plus, and as kind of one-sided as that previous round was in favor of 4Giver, as we get a bit of a
fat finger there. Yeah, Jasper might want that Death Blossom back, and that said, they're still not without tools. Royal Rice getting very close to that sound barrier there, and Dank does have the Supercharger online, which has been so decisive in current metas. There it is, coming out now. Macca's already got one as well, and this fight already well in hand.
Yeah, they haven't really needed to invest all that much as well. So they are going to be pretty happy with that defense. And there is going to be a blizzard on the other side from Tsukuyomi, but with how often Tsukuyomi's just been taken down early on in these fights, and with the fact that they're just not even able to get back to the point, they just didn't have nearly as much value out of that pick as they did with the Pharah. But that's kind of the nature of Village. It's a very different ranges that you're playing at, and they just weren't able to really bring it when it was a change in style.
Absolutely, and there was a time when you could play Pharah on Village, but these days teams very much like to just bunker down inside that point. They've got the means, especially when they're running a Mei as well. It is so easy to just deny the Pharah any angle of attack. So Tsuko not able to swap over there, but did not have a good round on Mei. Still, it's all going to come down to Shrine here and now. Tsuko's going to be back on the Pharah, definitely his best hero. And we'll see if ADSL2 Plus have any sort of answer to that. They will be rolling out with the Symmetra, but probably just for the teleport there to quickly get through, and then they'll be swapping over to the Reaper to teleport and catch up with the team.
Yeah, we'll see how the switch back to the Pharah is going to change up the way in which 4Giver try and approach this point. Already getting a nice kill. It's actually going to be the Hanzo from Somnam that's going to get the first kill. Tsukuyomi getting in onto the action, and now they're coming in from different angles from all different verticalities, and that is a very clean fight. And yeah, as soon as they're able to play those longer ranges, it does seem like 4Giver are very much in their element.
Absolutely. I mean, as I was saying, Suku is a phenomenal Pharah. It's easily his best hero, and he is easily one of the best Pharahs in the whole OCE region. I would go as far as to say the best Pharah in the region currently, now that Color Hex is not in the region anymore. But at the moment, it can be difficult to try and force Pharah on every map. I think if we get a meta where Pharah becomes super dominant, we can definitely see Suku potentially getting picked up onto a more important team. But, well, they managed to slip the point away underneath there. There's the barrage in, and Dank's going to go down immediately from that one. They have lost Wu Jing and Hanzo, though, so still a winnable fight here as the Gravitic Flux gets committed.
Yeah, they do still have quite a few people around from the longer distances. The Moira is going to be in there bringing out all the heals and the extra damage, as the long range damage from the Hanzo and from the Pharah. They're able to play it around. Yes, they did end up losing the point and giving over about 30% of it. It's actually going to keep on going with this fight, as people from the side of ADSL2 Plus, they're strangling, they're kind of delaying the point for as long as possible. It's not really working out for them. They are losing members time and time again, but they are maintaining possession of the point, racking up a little bit more possession, as Ayawawa is going to get a couple of kills with one of those orbs. So in the end, the fight is going to go over to the side of 4Giver, but they did end up bleeding quite a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, considering that fight was entirely in their control the whole time, and ADSL2 just stole the point in there. ADSL2 Plus, they just stole 45% of progress for a fight they didn't win. They didn't win a single team fight in the process of that, so they've made out like bandits here, and they've definitely got to be feeling good about that one, even if they weren't able to get any concrete victories there. Now they're going to have the Supercharger committed in there. A lot of ultimates getting thrown in, actually, as this next fight gets underway.
Yeah, here comes the Meteor Slam, and the entry comes through, and that's a lot of damage coming in from the side of ADSL2 Plus, and already they are going to get rid of the majority of ADSL2 Plus, and the investment of ultimates a little bit better from the side of ADSL2 Plus, whereas 4Giver, they just kind of got punished by it, and the crowd control coming in from Marker on this Doomfist was a little too much for them to deal with.
Absolutely, a lot of people pressing Q in that fight, but it is the members of ADSL2 Plus that stand strong at the end of it. Still, the next fight, they potentially have the advantage here. Flying Luigi's is able to get a good Gravitic Flux, and he is definitely trying to here and now. Manages to not get as much from it as he probably would have liked, so not the decisive opening, and now Suku's going to have an opportunity to answer very shortly with that barrage.
Ooh, Keyboard Man tried to get the Reflux in response, just didn't really get anyone out of it, and the response from ADSL2 Plus was a bit stronger, and they're just going to go for the very quick reset, understanding that they do not have much time to work with, and yeah, at 90%, and all of that can really stem back to that previous fight, as you mentioned, where they didn't even win it, but they managed to bleed out so much time from a losing fight that they are now in a situation where it is just It's struggle street now for 4Giver, I should say, as ADSL2 Plus bunkered down on this point, and now is actually forced out to switch over to the Tracer just to push this into overtime. We'll have to see how the rest of this fight is going to play it. Here comes the Coalescence from the side of Iowa. Here's the Missile Barrage, breaks out 2, and that able to get an extra one as well, as the Tracer's actually getting in on the action, doing a nice amount of work, and even though it looked a little bit shaky, 4Giver are going to be able to win the fight and grab themselves the point.
Yeah, at the very least, that second to last fight from now, they didn't invest too heavily. They kept hold of that barrage, and that means that they have it available there. Suku gets a lot of work done with it, manages to crack open the team fight, and now they're back in here. We're into last fight territory here. Not a lot of tools available, but there is a Valkyrie online for Wujing. There is a Pulse Bomb as well. Brawl Rice dropping the sound barrier to bring them in. They need to make some quick kills off this before...
Oh, that's really unfortunate. Tracer going down immediately, just getting absolute light knocked out of her. But Wujing does manage to use the Resurrection to get her back into the fight. Hanzo does manage to take down Jasper, so that is the Reaper out of the way, and that's a lot of that close range damage just removed from the fight. Here comes the Supercharger to bring a lot more damage to the fight. They do take down Margaret. That's all of the damage just being removed from the side of ADSL2 Plus, so it looks like 4Giver actually starting to really turn this fight really nicely in their favor. Here comes the Flux, doesn't manage to grab a couple of people, see if they're able to get too much more out of it. They do manage to take down Hanzo. Wujing is going to be removed as well, but it's just trading kills back and forth on the point here. It's into overtime, and they got off the point for just a fraction of a second, and it looks like 4Giver, against all odds, they do end up winning the round and this first map.
A really close display there at the end, considering how dominant that first round of Nepal was. It's good to see how much already we're seeing the adaptations come through and how close it was, but in the end, 4Giver managing to edge out in a fight that wasn't quite over yet. It's still bouncing on the tip of a knife, but better positioning in the end means that they, well, they've got people on the point, and unfortunately ADSL2 Plus did not. That's all you need. Ultimately, the objective is king in these fights. With that, 4Giver go up 1-0 in this series, and we'll be heading over to Escort next for our next map, which means that ADSL2 Plus will have the choice between Gibraltar and Junkertown.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be Junkertown. To be honest, that's pretty much the majority of what we're seeing throughout this entire event. It's just Junkertown. It's just something that these teams are they just really love it, I guess. It's just one of those maps that we're kind of seeing to death throughout the entirety of this event. I mean, I still enjoy it. It brings some interesting moments and some interesting strategies. I mean, sure, we've been seeing a lot of the bunker strategies, the double shields, and just like setting up close to that spawn point on defense and just making it as rough as possible. And sometimes, yeah, every now and then, a team will throw in some of those snipers to kind of shake things up, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be expecting a lot of those double shield compositions on this map.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been overwhelmingly the meta. The real question becomes, will we see Tsukuyomi on the Pharah, or will it be a Mei pick instead? Or will it be something else? I think most of the times I've seen Tsuku playing, it has usually been either Pharah or Mei, but the Mei is very much the current meta pick, so I'm sure there are other heroes in the pool. I think I've seen a Hanzo occasionally, and that can play into this one. But the big mystery, as always when you go to a new map, is what is 4Giver going to do here? Because really, as I said, they do not play by the rules of the same meta as everyone else, so it can be so difficult to work out what to expect out of them. ADSL2 Plus, they just need to focus on playing their own game, not getting sucked into whatever 4Giver are doing, as long as they can come up with some answers to it, I suppose.
Yeah, we've been talking about Tsukuyomi for quite a bit, but he does end up shaping a lot of how the 4Giver strategy does play along, because as you mentioned, he does kind of bring a few wild picks that aren't necessarily the most meta-friendly, but he does tend to make them work, and it also helps that the rest of the team are able to help him out with that as well. You have to give a lot of credit to Wujing, who does end up going over to the Mercy to try and play along with the Pharah, get that pharmacy going, and they do end up utilizing that quite nicely. Instead of giving But to do that, they have to kind of give up some of the more meta things like Moira, like the Baptiste, or whatever is going to be going into those double shield compositions. So a lot of it is on Tsukuyomi and the picks that he likes to go with, or they like to go with, but the rest of the team does help out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, if it was just Suku in the sky, it wouldn't be so much of a problem. But the team is also really good at applying the pressure to give Suku the space. So the 4Giver, they are really good at what they do. They are a nightmare of a team to go against because, unlike every other team out there, they are playing something different, and that makes them so hard to prepare for because there's no other team that plays like they do. You can't scrim someone else to prepare for 4Giver because only 4Giver are going to do it. And so I know when teams are looking to get better at playing against something like a Pharah, they seek out and try to scrim 4Giver because they know that Suku has a hot Pharah and is something is going to give them a run for their money.
Tsukuyomi's Pharah, you can kind of deal with the majority of them, to be quite honest. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyways, we will be having 4Giver now on the offense here at Junkertown, which means ADSL2 Plus going to be setting up the defense. Perhaps nothing surprising from their defensive picks here. They're going to be running the Bastion. They're going to be running the Mei. They'll have the Baptiste to help with that bunker there. And they're going to be running the Ana, which is perhaps
interesting.
Perhaps the unusual one, but on a map like Junkertown, maybe not that unusual.
The thing that's interesting about the Ana pick in this situation is that usually when you see the Ana, it's alongside a lot of the other snipers. You usually see the Widow or the Hanzo, so you have a lot of snipers playing those longer sight lines. But it seems in this regards, they want to be using the Ana for a lot of the control, like with the Sleeping Dart or the Byronade, just to make sure that they can actually execute some of those targets. But seeing the Pharah coming out from Tsukuyomi, they do a decent amount of damage to her and is forced all the way back. Let's see how this opening engagement comes in. The Mei is forced into the ice block as the Bastion does end up targeting her. The shields are down, but the Immortality Field is helping out in the long run as Tsukuyomi is getting into a good angle. Oh, but he gets absolutely clocked in the dome by one of those rocks, and Jasper is going to be able to finish that one off. Widging does get there for the resurrection as they are going to try and come in for another swing as they do finally bring down Jasper. And this could be the start of the end for the rest of this defense, at least for the time being, as Flying Luigi's are doing a good job in denying a lot of the damage coming in, but they're not able to really make the most of it just yet. The pane of glass coming out from the Baptiste is really helping out. Tsukuyomi gets a massive missile barrage to really just put the nail in the coffin for that defense, as the tank formation is going to end up finishing off, but that is a very strong end to that fight coming out of 4Giver.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing how their strategy plays out here. They're relying on Sonam putting down that suppressive fire on the Bastion, the withering fire that demands everyone pay their attention to it. And then Suku's taking an off angle. And we're seeing it here again as they've set up here. They've got that crossfire where there are two very dangerous threats, and they cannot afford to focus all their resources on either of them. And that is, well, at the moment, this is just keeping them bottled down there, and this payload is free pushing through. Finally, the commitment comes through onto the payload, but that's just going to put them into the sightlines. Gravitic Flux lifting everyone up, and it is a firing range for that Bastion. Easy fight win there for 4Giver.
Oh, that was just absolutely clean on offense there for 4Giver, just putting them into a lose-lose situation. Either you step out onto the point and contest the point, or you just get ground to dust. And once they stepped onto the point, the Gravitic Flux was kind of easy to line up there for the side of Keyboard Man, and it brought them all into the easy waiting arms of the Bastion, as you mentioned. And now they're going to start pushing their way forward. Here comes the Supercharger as they blast their way through Jasper at the start of this fight. Flying Luigi's doing a dismount job to try and deny a little bit of damage, but it's not nearly enough. Market does get a kill onto Iowawa, but it's definitely not enough in the grand scheme of things, as it looks like this Bastion is really going to start blasting their way through. Market trying to get away, going to be punching his way through a little bit, but it's not going to be enough. The rest of the fight goes nicely for the side of 4Giver, as this payload is going to continue moving.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough playing the Doomfist into a Bastion Pharah, because neither of them are really enemy DPS you can punch into things. I mean, maybe if you get lucky, you could line them a punch onto the Pharah, but the Bastion in turret mode is not going anywhere if that connects, and so it really limits your options on who to jump on. Now we do have the Supercharger coming in from Dank, but immediately melted by that Bastion, and already, once again, 4Giver in the driver's seat of this fight. ADSL2 Plus on the back foot.
Yeah, and they did manage to get a nice rock onto Wu Jing, but everyone was already dead at the time, as someone on this Bastion is just pretty well set up to just keep on just blasting their way through this defense, as the rest of the team is applying enough pressure that it's really hard to ignore a lot of those various angles. As you're mentioning, the Pharah is coming in from these rather off angles, so it's making it very hard for the defense to really deal with it. And by the time they actually get into a situation where it's like, oh, we can actually deal with this Pharah, it's like, well, the Bastion's already there, just kind of blasting through all of our shields, all of our resources, and yeah, it's not really working out for them so far. We're into this third point. Here comes the pane of glass out of the Baptiste, as the coalescence on defense from Rizal is going to come out and see if they're going to be able to keep everyone nice and topped up. Here comes the tank formation. See how the rest of this fight is going to play out. The immortality field does get removed, as Jasper is going to get clocked in the dome by a tank. As the Flux is going to bring so many people into the sky, but it's not really enough. It's on the backside. Tsukiyomi takes out 3 with the barrage, and that is pretty much that fight done and dusted.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, it's got to be so difficult. Like, how do you even pick a target to focus on here if you are the members of ADSL2+. If you try and hunt Suku, you're just going to get melted by Sonam. Try and go after Sonam, Suku's going to melt you. And if you find a way to deal with both of them, Keyboard Man on the blanking on his name now, Sigma, that's the one, is no slouch either. And they are just putting in so much damage. However, finally, Jasper and Mac are picking up a couple of key kills. The res is still there from Wu Jing, though. Tsuku back in there. But this is the best chance that ADSL2+ have had of winning a fight since Junkertown started.
Ooh, Kibble accidentally drops down to the ground, and that is really not the safest position when all of the defense is right there. They are losing a couple members. And now, as you mentioned, they're finally able to win a fight on their terms, and now we have to see how deep their heels can be dug in, because this can be a bit of an awkward spot to try and push in after you've lost the momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the end of all of these Escorts maps are always the last point by design, or the hardest point by design, I should say. Of course, they're the last point at the end of the map. But that said, the Bastion with the window there is a lot of damage. It's going to see everyone having to duck for cover there, and that's going to spread everyone out, make them very vulnerable to follow-throughs. Jasper going down there is an opening into this fight, but the Blizzard might just bail it out.
Yeah, nicely placed Blizzard, just completely stuffing that aggression coming out from the side of 4Giver. I mean, we heard the tank formation being activated, and that's a good timing to throw out that Blizzard. Just make him think twice. Sure, they managed to take down Hanzo, but he didn't end up having to use too much more than that on the offensive side. We'll see how this next fight is going to play out. As, a nice shot there onto Tsukiyomi. They managed to clock him with so much CC that there's only so much you can actually heal through there for Wu Jing. So they're just going to have to wait a little bit as they wait for the Pharah to get back into the fight. But there's a few really high-powered ultimates that we can be looking forward to seeing coming into this next fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were saying before, the supercharges are so powerful in this current meta. They really do make the time to kill drop to almost nothing. It can be so devastating. Bastion moving forwards, the wall underneath is really... It pulls it up from the shield, but it also gives it a better firing angle, and in the end works out as Sunham picks up 2. Now the offense getting back on this payload. They are set up and they are surging forwards. Soundbearer has been committed, but it is desperation territory, and there is not a lot of DPS available on the part of the defense to stop this one.
Yeah, and yet again, that May wall is just giving Somnan the easiest vantage point on the Bastion. Here comes a Death Blossom, does manage to take down the Immortality Field and also gets another for their trouble, but still the rest of the team is being very well set up here on the offense, but a good return fight there comes out from Roy Rice and Flying Luigi's. They managed to remove some of the real high priority targets. It is just the Orisa on the point. They got so close, less than a meter away from the full push, and with only 15 seconds left on the clock, it's going to be kind of struggle time for 4Giver. They have to rush towards this payload just to have another shot, and it looks like that could be the end for this round.
Absolutely. Flying Luigi's absolutely bailing out things there at the end. They will get the touch with the Tracer. and that's going to buy them a little bit of time, but Jasper picks up Suku, and there goes Wujing as well. They've lost their pharmacy in the sky, which means this is looking fantastic for ADSL2+. Jasper picks up another, and Maka getting AOE, flying Luigi's takes down his counterpart and keyboard man, and that is it. ADSL2+, they hold out there, they've kept the payload from getting all the way across the line. Now they have a victory condition in mind.
You say they held him off, but it was less than a meter, so it might as well have been a full push. It's only the matter of, well, now we just need to full push and we win the map, rather than just full push to keep the map going. So it's a very solid offense from the side of 4Giver. Very defendable. I mean, if you can hold them at any point, it's kind of defendable, so we'll have to see how this defense ends up going. We are going to have a quick pause. I think one of the players was having some comms issues, so we'll just wait for them to sort that out and we can get into this next round. And yeah, it's one of those maps, Peronis, where if you lose the momentum, especially on that third point, you can really the wheels just keep on just rolling off.
Yeah, there are a couple of nasty points on Junkertown that you can get bottled up in. There is that, of course, the first choke on the first point under that bridge is the classic full hold point there. Even the second point, if the defense is able to get really entrenched on that high ground, can be a nightmare to get momentum going once again. And this whole third point is just brutal on the offense. So a lot of teams, they really do rely on just snowballing their way through the map to be able to get these full pushes. And so it's not too uncommon to see the payload stopped before the end. The question is, are 4Giver going to be able to be the ones doing the stopping here, or will ADSL push their payload through and get themselves tied up in the scoreline? Only time will tell as we prepare to get back into things shortly.
Yeah, I believe we are ready as the timer is coming down. We will, even though we are back into out of the pause, we still have to wait a little bit for the whole start of round thing. So, yeah, so we will be getting into this next round. We'll see how 4Giver does on defense, as you mentioned. See what kind of compositions they're going to be coming out with, because we did see a few interesting adaptations or different choices in the composition on defense for the side of ADSL2+, with the Mei and also the Ana. That didn't necessarily work out for them on that first point once they did start to get stuck in on that third point. With a little bit more of a, I guess I could say, standard style of composition, it really worked out for them. But let's to see whether or not they're going to have tools to deal with Tsukuyomi, who is more than likely going to be on the Hep Pharaoh. So let's see if they can deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, the Jasper on the Widow really suggests that they are expecting that. I mean, at the very least, you don't lose much by exiting attacker spawn on the Widowmaker. You can try and take a quick shot. If you do a bit of scanning through the scope, and if you don't see the Pharaoh, easy to swap. So it remains to be seen whether or not Jasper will actually stay on this Widow, because even then, a lot of the time, we see teams roll out with the Widow, try and take an early shot onto the pharmacy, and if they don't hit it, they still swap over to another hero. But Jasper was having good results on that hero at the end of the last round, so maybe we do stick with it.
As the gates are open, Jasper does have a good line onto the pharmacy, but does end up missing those first couple of shots and is going to be forced all the way back into spawn. And fortunate that they're not able to get those ones to land, and that's going to leave the rest of the team kind of high and dry. They can't really stick around too much longer. They're having to be pinned all the way back into spawn, as Jasper is essentially on a 1v2 mission here, trying to deal with the pharmacy as a single Widow. It's not an awful lot of fun, as here comes the Amplification Matrix, as Jasper is going to get Wujing, and because you take down that Mercy, that is going to be the resurrection out of the way, and now we've got Flying Luigi's just darting after Tsukuyomi, and it is going to leave Jasper in a great position to clean that one up, and that is the pharmacy just removed from the field of battle. But Somnam a little bit high and dry, gets cleaned up by, well, Marker gets cleaned up by Somnam, as they do end up getting a couple of kills for themselves. So even though they did end up losing their prized pharmacy, they are getting a few extra kills themselves and is holding on quite nicely on this defense. Yes, Jasper's in a good angle. Here comes the Supercharger to help out on this defense as Wujing does get the resurrection onto Somnam. Roy Rice does make the clear on Tsukiyomi, which is a nice kill coming out for the Ana. See how the rest of this defense is going to go, because with a lot of these extra ultimates coming in from the side of from 4Giver, they're able to get the fight going quite nicely for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they are just relying on things like the Supercharger and the Amplification Matrix to really amp up the shield break from their Bastion, make sure they win those duels. They're going to have to back off and give some space now, though. They are out of those tools, and they don't quite have everyone online. Going to move back to a more defensible position than where they were, but they are going to try and hold this one under the arch here, because it is the traditional spot. There's the window coming out now, however. Shield battle, however, goes the other way as someone gets Dank as the early kill, as Jaster's picked up Suko.
Yeah, to see how the rest of this fight plays out. The resurrection does come through onto Tsukuyomi as see if they can get that Pharah back into a good spot. But it looks like the offense is going to be able to pull back just a little bit. They weren't confident in how the rest of that fight was going to play out. So they pull themselves back for just a second, wait for a few of the cooldowns to be utilized. A good stone to the dome of Marker is going to knock him down and is going to force him back a little bit more, and here comes the aggression coming out from the side of ADSL2+. They have dropped a lot of the tools onto the ground as Somnam is going to be the first one to go down thanks to Marker just blasting through that front line. Yeah, the resurrection has come through, but that is a big tool utilized. Finally, Luigi is going to start moving forward a little bit too far as they get cleaned up, as here comes the Flux, does slam a couple to the ground. Tsukiyomi cleans up the rest with the rest of the barrage. And that is a nice defense there from the side of 4Giver. It looked like it was going to be a bit of an iffy situation after they lost a couple at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. But 4Giver rallying in good order. They've got the tools, they've got the ultimates, and they're just able to invest them to win out these fights. The payload continues to very slowly edge forwards, but at the very least it has made it through that choke point, which is going to make this next defense a bit harder. Hanzo getting picked up early there by Jasper as well is going to put a lot of pressure on the remaining defenders here. The res does manage to come through. Wujing has gotten away with these reses every time, despite an opposing Widowmaker, and Suka getting an early kill onto Royal Rice as well means that this is still looking really good here.
Yeah, able to get those extra kills, and even throughout all that, because of that resurrection went down onto Hanzo, the Orisa was able to get onto the point and contest it. And that makes sure that this fight is going to, or this defense on first point is going to continue. Keyboard Man gets a good kill onto Dank, and with less than 10 seconds on the clock, it's looking like this is going to be a very quick map for the side of 4Giver. They do manage to get to the point. Markers switching over to the Tracer, but they're not in the best of situations. Here comes the Flux. They do manage to take down one in Iowawa. The Immortality Field has been destroyed. The rest of the team are trying to make their way towards the car, but they're just not really, because they're kind of overextending themselves to get there. They're just getting absolutely ground to dust, and that is going to be a pretty clean map win for the side of 4Giver. That's going to be a 2-0 lead coming into the third map, so good start for 4Giver.
Yeah, absolutely. They have been putting on a great show. They are clearly in top form tonight. There was really only one moment where they've looked vulnerable, which was, well, that map on Village where Suku was playing the Mei instead of the Pharah. It's the only time they have looked mortal, because at every other moment they have shown a masterclass on how to take over these games. And the pressure, once again, coming on to ADSL2+, they need to come up with an answer for that. Jasper did not have a bad game per se on the Widowmaker either. Was putting a lot of pressure onto Suku, but Wujing kept getting away with the reses, even when Jasper was able to hook in and try and get the quick shot, just not getting what was needed to drop that Mercy. And so much value coming from those reses. They basically had to kill 7 people to win the fights against 4Giver, because Wujing was so reliably, consistently bringing people back.
Yeah, and I did kind of offhandedly mention Wujing on the Mercy earlier, but as you mentioned, it was so incredibly pivotal in that map. Getting the Orisa, when you have someone whose username is literally one of the other heroes, it makes things very awkward. Hanzo on the Orisa was able to get onto that payload, but yeah, it's little moments like that where any other day you'd expect. Any other Mercy, you'd expect them to get punished for going for a lot of those resurrections, but Wujing manages to get it to work, so they're able to get those fights. The value engine from those resurrections really starting to come into effect, and yeah, they were able to get the fights going in their favor. As you mentioned, Jasper did do a pretty decent job with the Widows, so it's hard to say whether or not it's a tool to go back to. It just seems like the rest of the team was not really on the same game plan. But anyway, we are going into the third map. It is going to be the hybrid discipline, and it looks like we have been chosen to go to King's Row, of all things.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps not a big surprise. This is, after all, an OCE game. This game mode might as well be called King's Row, because if it's in the map pool, it's almost always being selected. But, bit of an interesting choice nonetheless. I mean, I suppose, given the choices between King's Row and Eichenwald, if you're having problems with a Farah, you definitely do not want to take things to Eichenwald. So, definitely also the tactical choice here for ADSL2+, as we make our way over to our third map. And the question remains, how will they deal with this 4Giver roster?
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of the heroes that are being picked up. Oh, it's still a little bit way too early to have a look at the attacking team and some of the heroes that they have selected and make decisions on that. But on defense, it's just going with their standard double wall with the real close quarters DPS lineup with Marker on that Doomfist, Jasper on the Reaper. It has been very powerful when they've been allowed to play their style of the close quarters down and dirty brawling, but they've just not been allowed that thanks to Tsukuyomi consistently on the Farah. So yeah, it looks like that is going to be the name of the game. Well, it's not broken, so there's no need to fix it at this stage of the series. And yeah, we'll see how this first push is going to play out. The Farah does come through to give a little bit of extra scouting, and even the Hanzo with some of those sonic arrows is going to help out as well. See how this close range quarters is going to be able to deal with the incredibly long range of a Hanzo and a Farah. They are going to be forced back through the hotel because they cannot stand in the open when there's a Farah from afar layering in those rockets, as Roy Rice does manage to get behind the Hanzo, but not really able to clean them up as of yet. Roy Rice gets cleaned up themselves by Tsukuyomi. But the rest of the team, they put themselves into some close quarters themselves, and this might not be the best of ideas, as Rizal does manage to clean up Tsukuyomi utilizing the Coalescence. And this does give them an opportunity to shore up their defenses a little bit more.
Absolutely. With Wujing going down there, it means there's a lot of pressure on these remaining members. It's sort of 4 members of 4Giver are a little isolated here. They have managed to weather the storm, however, and the rest of the team has come back through. Now we have the members of ADSL2+ moving forwards onto the points, trying to evict the attackers here. And there's Tsukuyomi with the barrage, picked up 2 before getting punished for it. That may be all that's needed to win the rest of this fight here.
We'll have to see how it plays out, but with that, with the Farah out of the way, it's giving a lot more freedom to that close range composition. But the Gravitic Flux is going to help just set up and tee off some of those DPS members. Marker does get a good kill on the keyboard man. Rizal does manage to clean up Wu Jing, but as Rizal actually gets another kill, nicely done there on the Moira's going to be able to keep themselves alive. They do end up going down. But this offense is starting to lose some of its teeth as Dank is going to clean up Hanzo. Tsukuyomi is back into the fight, but with them being so far away, they're not really contesting the point all that much. Here comes those dragons! Wow, it's been a while since we've seen one of those light up the kill feed, but there it is. We have the Dragon Strike going straight through, give themselves a nice 3-piece. Tsukuyomi's going to get the rest. And what was looking like is going to be an alright defense, or at least somewhat hold there, the Dragons come through and completely shut them down.
Yeah, I'd have to say they did not expect those Dragons to come straight through where they were. They were definitely very busy there as 2 tanks desperately trying to keep themselves safe and buy time on the point until the rest of the team can come back through. But really good placement there by Sonam to line that one up, and it just cuts right through them when they are not expecting it. And that was the end of that fight. Supercharger is down now as the defense moves forwards, trying to take back control of this payload, and really does force members of 4Giver to back off. But Suki picks up 1, Jasper lets it rip with the Death Blossom. Here's the barrage to answer, and it is a lot of kills on both sides, but the ground presence is gone for 4Giver, and Suku's going to have to back off.
Yeah, just a little bit unfortunate that they weren't able to maintain any kind of control on the ground. Tsukuyomi is going to get cleaned up eventually by Marker, and now that they've lost the fight, it can be a little bit awkward trying to push their way back through this archway. It is one of those few points that if you do get caught up and lose a little bit of momentum, it can be very difficult to push through. Have to see how they're going to be able to come through and some of these alternate angles, but with Marker in those higher areas, just waiting for someone to just absolutely knock their block off. Here comes a couple of the ultimates. The Gravitic Flux is going to come through, only does manage to pick up one, or actually picks up a few of them, but they're not able to really follow up on that. The Coalescence is going to keep everyone nice and healthy throughout all of that. No one has gone down just yet. Flying Luigi's taking a little bit of damage. He's going to have to be forced away just a little bit. Tsukiyomi is, they're trying to get into a good position, but because of how it's either Jasper or it's going to be Marker in those higher corridors, they can't really get into those rear angles to really make a dent into this defense. We do have some of them going to get cleaned up, but the resurrection is going to come through. So in the end, it's going to be a nice trade in favor of 4Giver, as they do have the extra man thanks to the revive. They're going to start making their way through. Marker cleans up Wujing yet again, just punches them clean in the jaw, and even the switch from Solnam over to the Doomfist is really working out. Is really punching away through a lot of these defenses.
Yeah, absolutely. Sonam is putting on a great performance here on this Doomfist. I mean, the Doomfist is such an important piece of the current meta because it, as we were saying much earlier tonight, Doomfist doesn't really care about the double shield. He just flies straight through and connects people's faces into the nearby wall. But we're going to be heading into another fight here. We're going to have the Supercharger drop down early by Hanzo. Coalescence is there benefiting from it. It's a lot of damage in, but Sonam actually the first casualty to fall. Keyboard Man, however, answering back, taking out both of the tanks of their counterpart. And that is going to be a cleanup in favor of 4Giver here.
Yeah, it looked like it was an alright start to the fight from the side of ADSL2+, but yeah, as you mentioned, Keyboard Man just completely popping off in that fight, getting a couple of those early, a couple of those kills on the front line, and when one person just completely dictating a fight and just swinging the fight in their favor, it's really hard to deal with. And even you don't have a resurrection, well, you kind of just lose people. Oh, and speaking of just losing people, Tsukiyomi is going to get cleaned up. And they doesn't look like they're going to be in a position to get the resurrection, so they are forced back just a bit. They still have 2 minutes to work with. They can play it nice and cautiously.
Yeah, Jasper moving forwards there to camp the body, making sure they won't get the res off in that one, and that triggers the retreat in 4Giver. 2 minutes on the clock is still plenty of time, but this last point can be a bit nasty. Sonam going down there, it means they're probably going to have to back off again. No, the res does come through. 4Giver are going to commit into this one. Gravitic Flux comes through, but doesn't really pick up much. But, 4Giver really surging forwards on this one.
Yeah, they managed to get rid of Marker, and that's pretty much the go button for the side of 4Giver to just go all the way through. But Jasper on the return swing just gets into the right position, picks up a couple with that Death Blossom, and as quickly as that fight started, it ended with a nice little Q button there from the Reaper, and yeah, it's starting to get down to the nitty-gritty. It's a minute and 20 left on the clock for the side of 4Giver, and with the Reaper on the back side, they have to be very careful about how they approach this next fight. Jasper coming in, does get a few good shots on Tsukiyomi, but with that concussion they do manage to get themselves back to safety. So here comes the Coalescence to keep themselves nice and safe. Here comes the entry. The Coalescence does finish off 2 members, the Flying Luigi, and also Jasper is cleaned up. A bit of Orisa on Orisa brutality, and the rest of the fight is going to go nicely for the side of 4Giver as they can continue pushing their way through the Foundry, but with how much there is left to go, there is probably going to be at least one more fight on defense in the side of ADSL2+. We'll see how this one plays out. It's just a single ultimate either side. We'll see how it plays out, if they can have those big impact plays. Marker is into the back line, coming in with the slam, doesn't end up killing anyone out of it, but gets pushed away thanks to Somnam, as the rest of the fight is going to continue. The Coalescence comes through, in comes the Supercharger, here comes the Missile Barrage from very, very long distance. Somnam is going to get cleared up by Marker, who has, for the most part, been the more deadly of the Doomfists, and that is going to potentially just clean up the rest of that fight. And with 10 seconds left on the clock, they don't really have a lot of time to reset here.
No, they really don't. The Supercharger has been committed by Dank. That is going to be expiring now. This is going to be the opportunity for 4Giver to come forwards here. They've got the res onto Sonam as well, so they're getting a lot of people on there, and the kills are coming through in their favor. Ultimate Economy is potentially going to give the members of ADSL2 Plus another shot at this if they can get in there. Jasper picking up Ayowawa is a good pickup there, but does get picked up by it. The gong sounds, that is it. They have no one left. Fist actually does manage to get in. They are managing to trickle in and buy time. So maybe, just maybe, there is an opportunity to get this going for long enough to bring the ultimates online. But Suko's having none of that.
Close.
Pops the barrage and just blasts away Dank there in the end.
Unfortunately, in that last little, like, 10 seconds, Somnam ended up accidentally throwing himself into the pit, which, thankfully for him, didn't end up costing them that last little bit of push. But in the end, they do end up forcing enough of the defense away from the point. It was in overtime, so, well, better to push it all the way in overtime than not at all. So we'll have to see how ADSL2 Plus are going to go on their attack, but there were definitely moments for both sides in that first round. Could have gone either way. Could have been a much cleaner of a push all the way through, or at any stage throughout that, it looked like it could have been held.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree on that one, but, well, it's been so difficult to deal with everything that 4Giver has been throwing out so far. ADSL2 Plus, they gave a better showing this time. They've really managed to put up some stiff resistance here. A bit earlier on than perhaps we saw the resistance come out on Junkertown, so that is a good sign for them going forwards. But they need to turn it around here. They need to get a good, decisive push through. If they can finish this with over a minute on the clock, it really would represent a shifting of the winds here and a changing of fortunes.
Yeah, if they can get this map, they will be on their way back to equaling out this score. It's already 2-0 in favor of 4Giver. If they're able to grab this map and go up 3-0, they will be one map win away from taking the Champions Gauntlet and forcing ADSL2 Plus to go for a reverse sweep, and those aren't the most fun of things to try and do. But here we go with the ADSL2 Plus offense. Already they're firing, or they're flying right into the face of all of those rockets coming out from the Tsukuyomi Farah, and they're trying to get themselves in under covers because it is just raining rockets left, right, and center. And being in this hotel, it's a nice little safe space for now, but they can't really stick there forever. They are going to try and go all the way around the back, get themselves into a nice position to see how they're going to be able to get this to work. The Farah is going to be there waiting for them with a few rockets, just to make sure that they are very well aware that if they step anywhere outside of their comfort zone, they are going to cop some rockets to the face. But now they're in a good position. They just chase them into the hotel, as Ayowawa is going to be the first one to go down. The return to kill onto Jasper is good for them, as they also take down Dank, as Somnam on the Bastion is getting nicely supported and set up nicely around the point as they just grind through this offense from ADSL2 Plus. The resurrection does come through, so they have all their people ready for the fight. Maka does not get that engagement that they would like out of that fight. They are going to be forced back just for now, as the first defense goes in the favor of 4Giver.
And what a long fight that ends up being, because of the necessity to go for the long approaches, to force that Bastion to rotate, try and move them around into a less defensive position. It ends up taking such a long time. You lose a lot of time in the process of it. Really nice halt from Hanzo there, leading to the kill on Royal Rice and Maka as well. So that will be the second fight down as well. With just above 2 minutes left on the clock already, the time pressure is starting to come in from ADSL2 Plus, and they've really got no ultimates to speak of.
Yeah, and especially because they ended up, Ryans will end up using the coalescence in that fight to try and keep them alive. But as you mentioned, the amount of damage coming through from the follow-up onto Hanzo's crowd control, really nicely done there on defense here on the side of 4Giver. And as you mentioned, the time is starting to become a bit of an issue. They do try and get some damage onto Wujing or even Tsukuyomi. Either of the two, it would be nice to get some onto. But here comes a missile barrage from afar. But Sonim is going to be doing the majority of the damage, as Marka does manage to get a kill onto Tsukuyomi, but it's not nearly enough. The resurrection comes through. It's almost as if that kill never even happened.
Yeah, exactly. And we've just over 90 seconds left on the clock here. It's desperation time for ADSL2 Plus. They still haven't found a single gap in this defense here. And they're running out of time to play with. They still do not have any ultimates online. Royal Rice getting close to the sound barrier. That may be the crucial tool to be able to survive just long enough to maybe evict that Bastion from the map. got resources about to come online, but they need to last long enough to drop them in.
Here comes the Flux, that's bringing several members into the sky. It doesn't end up killing anyone throughout that. Here comes a tank formation to try and bust through a lot of those shields and a lot of that early HP as the Death Blossom comes through. The Flux is a really great one out of Flying Luigi's. Jasper's damage is going to clean up the rest of that fight, and yeah, as you were saying, well, they finally got their resources, and once they got them, they used them to devastating effect. ADSL2 Plus finally getting onto the board.
Yeah, I was a little worried when the Gravitic Flux lifted everyone away from the Death Blossom, but the damage had already been done, and it works out as all members go down from that combo. So perhaps not what you'd normally expect to pair well together, but works out in this case for ADSL2 Plus. And now they're surging forwards, trying to put the pressure on the members of 4Giver. They don't want them being able to set up in a early defensive spot here. They need to keep the pressure up, and they're absolutely doing that. Here comes the Amplification Matrix. The wall is there to deny the Bastion that damage boost, but even so, 4Giver, they're able to hold this forward position. ADSL2 Plus not able to commit heavy resources onto that. The payload continues to come forward. Jasper going down early is not a good start.
Yeah, he came with the flank, but does get knocked in the dome by one of those stones coming out of Keyboard Man, and they just turn on them immediately, clean that one up. Marker does get taken out as Keyboard Man ends up going by his own means, as it does seem like this defense is getting set up quite nicely. The resurrection does come through, his immortality field does get cleaned up immediately, but the rest of the team is already doing so much damage as they can't stay around on this payload for ADSL2 Plus, and that's one of those big things that Baptiste is bringing to this lineup. You have to deal with another thing before you deal with the Pharah or the Bastion. There's so many things for them to actually deal with before they can start actually doing damage.
Absolutely, it is so difficult to try and close in on 4Giver. Looks like they're going to go for a flank now as a team. Bring in, try and deny the sightlines of the Bastion. We're going to see the rotation come through in response to that. Jasper actually gets the kill through there. That is crucial. And we see them surge forwards. They want to control this space. They cannot allow the Mercy to get that res off. But, wow, a double damage boosting ult there. But what a nice blizzard coming through. The damage may be done, but Jasper's here to be able to try and clean up on this one. This fight on a nice edge could go either way here. Wujing this time punished for the res, and it looks like ADSL2 Plus might be able to pull this one out from the brink of defeat here.
Oh, they're finally gonna... Oh, they've got a good position in this fight, but here comes Somnium with the tank, just comes in and just blasts away Jasper. Ryzel's gonna be the next one on the chopping block as well. Ryzel goes down as well, and it looks like Somnium comes in to save the day with a giant tank as they just blast away the offense. Flying Luigi does get a kill in response onto their opposing number, but Somnium comes in, bloody superhero with a tank. You don't really see that too often, as the resurrection does get used, as it's only 20 seconds left on the clock here for ADSL2 Plus. They don't really have much, well, they have to kind of rush to get to the point. They have a couple of tools to work with. They do have the Supercharger, the Death Blossom, and also the Coalescence, and even a Sneaky Sound Barrier if that is what they need. But on defense, there really is not much to work with. They are setting up on the high ground, so they can't get flanked. And Tsukuyomi is going to get knocked in the dome by Flying Luigi's. That could be the good situation, or good opportunity, for them to push all the way through to the second point at least. They are going to get rid of Dank, as they are going to try and shift him away from the point. They do drop down. Hanzo is now on the point to see if the damage is going to be able to come through, as we do have the Bastion dropping down. All the Death Blossom comes through, cleans up the Bastion, and that is going to be a lot of the damage removed from the fight as they finally make their way to that second checkpoint.
Absolutely. ADSL2 Plus, they keep their hopes in this map alive, but it is by no means a guaranteed thing. They're now heading into the hardest part of the map, and they're having to snowball it through without much in the way of ultimates. They've used all of their resources just to get to this point. The defense, on the other hand, about to get all of their ultimates coming online. Dank going down early there as well, not a great position. A minute left on the clock means there's time to back out and regroup. But the defense, it's got so much resources available to them here, and the advantage of that close spawn. 4Giver are looking really good to close this one out.
Yeah, all they used for that specific fight was the Amp Matrix. Bastion is very happy with that one. they also have a few good ones to work with and see how this next fight plays out. They are trying to get in behind onto the Bastion. Here comes the missile barrage. Doesn't really get anyone because a bit of an awkward situation as the defense is trying to readjust its positioning as Somnam. Well, here comes the Flux, but the Blizzard is in a great position to lock down that Bastion and also keep up man on that Sigma, and that could be a good opportunity for them to try and snowball this fight. But with Somnam still in this fight on this Bastion, and here comes the Amp Matrix. So how much damage they're able to get done. The healing is going to come through, but it's not nearly enough. Flying Luigi's is really just carrying this fight for the side of ADSL, for ADSL2 Plus. It is into overtime, but they have control of the cart. And all it's going to take is one good fight to finish this one off. Here comes the Supercharger on defense for 4Giver. See if they're going to be able to get things to work out, as we do have to shift over to the Doomfist for Somnam, as the cart is only a few meters away from the point. Here comes the Death Blossom to shut out this defense. That is massive. Jasper just cleaning up the rest of these fights. The rest of this fight. May is going to be on the point. It's not really going to be enough, as there's no one else within a bloody mile. And that is going to be the card pushed all the way in, as we're going to keep this map going. We liked it so much, we are going for the next couple of rounds.
Wow, what a comeback there from ADSL2 Plus. They absolutely needed that, and they managed to pull it out.
That was
in
struggling
the end.
on point A, on the first point.
It was an absolute uphill battle all the way through from them. They managed to get it through, but now they're kind of in a position where they need to do that again. But this time they don't have any time reserves. There's going to be an opportunity before that happens for them to try and shut out 4Giver here. But the pressure is definitely on these players. They are definitely feeling it. Because, I mean, we've seen just how dangerous 4Giver have been on this map. They have looked really good. They almost full held the members of ADSL2 Plus, and their attack did not get stopped up until it got right into the final stages of the map. That is something you cannot afford to have happen again if you are ADSL2 Plus. You need to stop them early if you want to pick up this map, and you need to pick up this map to keep your hopes and dreams alive in this series. So much pressure mounting on the shoulders of these players, and that takes its toll on your performance.
Yeah, it's going to be... You know, a lot of this map is... it's going to be a bit of a make or break in this series, as you mentioned. This map is going to be very pivotal in how the rest of this series is going to play out. It is going to be 4Giver on attack. They were a little bit more efficient in their first round here on this first point. So if they're going to be able to get something a little bit similar, as they do still have Tsukuyomi in the skies on the Pharah. So if they're able to bring themselves the same advantages that they had in the previous round, as they do have a clear sight of where everyone on their defense is, as they are starting to make their way towards the point. The Hanzo and the Pharah from long range doing a decent amount of damage to a lot of those shields. They are on the point. They're going to start getting a little bit of progress. We do finally have the Pharah in a good position to just pepper them as they try and make their way towards the point. Here comes, I believe that was an amplification matrix, but Tsukuyomi is just going to just keep on dumping these missiles into this corridor, and they just cannot deal with it. They cannot get out of there, and already this first point is just going to get completely capped without too much of a resistance.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to put up the resistance. ADSL2 Plus, they just don't have the same sort of composition here. Yeah, they're also running a Bastion-based defense, but what they're lacking is that off-angled threat. They don't have anyone else playing a different angle, and so 4Giver, they're able to just make the rotations, deny the Bastion sightlines, and get ready to pick the fight on their terms. Give Sugo time to get set up there. There really just isn't the same sort of dual threat that 4Giver have been presenting, and as a result, it allows 4Giver the time to find a solution to the puzzle. Now we're into overtime, and the contest comes through onto the payload here, but already 4Giver, they've got all the space in this fight.
And they do have to stick to it like glue. Hanzo going to be the one who is going to be pretty much pasted to it, or welded to it, however you want to try and make that work. Somnam is going to be taken down by Flying Luigi's, but the resurrection does come through. He did end up going with the switch over to the Bastion. Now that we're onto the payload section, as a Gravitic Flux is going to bring a couple into the skies, as they are just caught in that little corner shop.
Oh no!
It's just like fish in a barrel at this point. The Coalescence is going to do a good job at keeping them alive, but because they have been forced so far out of position. They are just getting ground to dust, and this offense is going to keep on rolling through. It is still into overtime. They cannot get off this cart, but they're not really in any threat of being forced away from it at this time in the round, so they can just keep on moving their way through.
What could be more heartbreaking than being pinned down in a room under withering suppressive fire from a bastion and the payload still rolling freely away? You just know every passing moment it is getting further and further away, and you're just stuck there. They eventually needed to die, but they give up their chance of having a second fight on this point because of how long it took. Tsukuyomi going down early in this one, however, is an opportunity. The res is there from Wu Jing. They need to follow it through, and unfortunately Jasper has gone down. Sonam sounding the charge once more. Going to come forwards with these big, heavy damage tank shells. Flying the lead, he's trying to shut it down, but a shot gets through onto Royal Rice. Here's the barrage in from Tsuku now, and this is still everything in favor of 4Giver here. With a minute on the clock, they are continuing to push this one well into the third point.
Yeah, they are just continuing with this momentum. It's just so incredibly powerful, and Hanzo was able to stay alive on that front line for so long. They were just copping shots left, right, and center, but because of the amplified healing from the Baptiste, they were able to keep themselves nice and healthy and stick on that point, because if they were able to get rid of Hanzo on that front line, I really don't think they had anyone around to keep this payload in check, as they are going to use the Coalescence in a very offensive manner here from the side of ADSL2+, see if they can get this fight to keep on going. The May shift from Tsukuyomi, so no more Pharaoh. See if it's going to be able to work out for them, as here comes the Amplification Matrix to get this Bastion really kicking into high gear. They're trying to keep them alive. Another tank formation, yet another one in this offense. And Tsukuyomi getting in onto that front line, gets the kill onto Maka, and it looks like they're just going to keep on winning fight after fight after fight, and they're going to keep on getting all these resources back. As, yeah, that's a very clean fight for themselves. They have another few ultimates for themselves to work with the supercharge, and there's absolutely nothing that this defense can do. Thanks to the May, they just lock out any entrance towards the point, as they do end up removing the last couple of members, as that's a full push with a single minute.
That's a full push with only a single minute. That is the sort of thing that breaks a team. ADSL2+, they need to win this map, but now they're in a position where they need to repeat that with their own full push to have any hope of doing this again in OT. 4Giver looking absolutely dominant in this matchup, and that is going to be a huge blow to the morale of an already desperate ADSL2+ side. How do you come back from that? How do you come up with an answer to what 4Giver are playing here?
I really don't know. They've been trying different things. They've been trying their style, the more measured approach to the point, but as you mentioned at the end of their previous round, they don't have the time to have that cautious approach to the point. They have a minute. You have like one good attempt at making a solid push, and if that doesn't work, well, you're done. So ADSL2+, they have to make one attempt, and it has to work on that first try, or else, yeah, this map is going to be done, and 4Giver are going to be on match point.
And if we take it back and remember how their attack went previously, it took them almost the full 4 minutes to get it going. It required them getting ultimates online to be able to take control of this first point. They do not have time to get those resources online this time. They need to do something with nothing, and they so far have not been able to do that. Hear the aggression coming in now as they make their way into Hotel. It is the position that's going to give them the most cover from these dual threats of the Bastion and Pharah. They're going for the long rotation again. They know it gives them their best chance at victory, but even then, it didn't work out for them last time particularly well.
You have to see how this one plays out. They do a bit of a fake, but it doesn't really work out, as Razul is going to get cleaned up. They do try and dive onto that defense. Some of them is going to get cleaned up, but the rest of the team are just not able to really follow through, as yet again, this damage is a little bit too ridiculous. Some of them is able to stay alive so long, just all of that support structure around him is just able to allow the Bastion to just left click to victory, and with only 5 seconds left on the clock, this has to be a very desperate offense here from the side of ADSL2+. They do get onto the point, but here comes a missile barrage to completely shut them down. There's going to be 2 removed from the table. We do have a hamster on the table, but we'll see how much they're going to be able to get done. Hanzo is on the point, just stalling out this capture, but we'll have to see if it's going to really work out for them, is they do have the switch over to the Widow from Jasper. It's not nearly enough. That is not able to get the members to the point, and that is 4Giver picking up their third map, and they are now on match point.
And I mean, you have to look at this and go, it's just not fair. Because ADSL2 Plus, they're having to fight 6 versus 7. Wu Jing is so consistently getting these reses, even if they get the early kill on the Bastion, the Mercy's there and the Mercy gets the res. Every time we are seeing these early casualties coming through, and as a result, Wu Jing putting on an incredible performance, and it just means that these fights are just not working out. ADSL2 Plus not able to follow through on that momentum, and as a result, they're down 0-3 rather.
Yeah, it is going to be a rough road back if they're going to be able to even put a dent into some of the score. But after a map like that, it's really one of those moments where you have to really go back to the drawing board. All right, what has been working for us? What hasn't been working for us? And a lot of it has to be revolved around Tsukuyomi. How are we going to be able to deal with this Pharah coming into the rest of these maps? That's one thing, and they just need to just reset their mental. But we will be able to give them a bit of a break. And to be honest, I think we need a little bit of a break ourselves. So we are going to go to a short break, and when we come back, we'll get to the end of this grand final of the Champions Gauntlet. So don't go too far away. Let me just finish that sentence. Don't go too far away. We'll be right back. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Champions Gauntlet Grand Final. We are 3 maps into this series between ADSL2 Plus and 4Giver, with 4Giver being 3-0 up. And Peronius, it's been the issue of how does ADSL2 Plus deal with Tsukuyomi?
Well, that's a very good question, and that has indeed been the issue, but it hasn't all been Tsuko. We have seen some incredible play from Sonam on the Bastion, on the Doomfist, on any number of tools, and honestly, my big highlight player at the moment has been Woojing on the Mercy, who has consistently made every team fight a 7v6 with some really good reses. So there are a lot of very dangerous players on the side of 4Giver, and ADSL2 Plus struggling to come up with the answers, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, they have had moments of brilliance. I mean, a lot of their strong moments have been from Marker, who consistently on that Doomfist has been able to get into those backlines and give themselves the kills, just open up a lot of these team fights. And to be honest, if you compare the two Doomfists between Marker and Sonam, yes, Sonam has been very serviceable, but I feel as though Marker has been the much more lethal and much more deadly of the two Doomfists. So I have to see whether or not Marker is going to be able to open up a lot of those opportunities coming into this 4th map, because if he's not really able to, or the team aren't able to capitalize on that, well, that's going to be the end of this series. Yeah, essentially, that would be the end of this map, the end of this series, the end of this entire tournament. And yeah, I'm not sure they'll want it to go down like that just yet. I mean, I'm sure they want to get at least a couple maps, but we are coming into the Assault Discipline, and it was the choice between Hanamura and Volskaya, and it's kind of a bit of a toss-up between those two, but we are going to be on Hanamura.
I think Hanamura probably the safer pick of the two. It's a lot harder to run the Pharah on the second point of Hanamura than it is Volskaya, and that kind of has to be in the forefront of your mind whenever you're doing a map pick against this 4Giver roster. So I do not fault their decision here at all, but as you were saying, it's a long journey from here out if ADSL2 Plus want to get this reverse sweep in here. And so far, as I said, they really have not been showing as the dominant team in this series, despite coming into it as the #1 seed. And that is something that's very easy to forget looking at the scoreline and how everything is unfolded here. Maka going aggressive though. They will be chasing down Sonam on the Hanzo there. Point flips through the first tick nonetheless.
Yeah, we did have the pharmacy just sneak around and manage to get themselves onto the point, but yeah, as you mentioned, they did end up using that opportunity to dive onto Somnam. He does end up switching back over to the Doomfist, understanding that maybe the Hanzo is not going to be the tool necessary for what they're coming up against, as the Coalescence is going to be utilized on that front line. Dank does manage to take down Hanzo, and they are going to be able to move themselves forward, get a little bit more aggressive on this defense, clean up the rest of the ground army here from 4Giver, and ADSL2 Plus. Yeah, they're not too bad of a situation, but throughout all of that, because they stepped too far away, the second tick on the point has been captured by the sneakiest of the pharmacies.
Yeah, Tsuko really showing exactly what you can do on Pharah here, managing to steal 73% progress just on some really nice careful play there. And now look at the aggression coming in, look at the position the defense is being put into. And looks like we're going to actually have a quick pause here. Must have been a bit of a DC in the lobby. Unfortunate timing for that one. Tsuko, having just pressed Q, hasn't even begun to let rip on it. So that's going to make it a lot easier to respond to that than anyone would normally have any right, because all of these players, well, they're going to be able to see that that's about to happen before it even does.
Yeah, I mean, one of the players was complaining of a lot of lag, so they're just going to have to just wait until that gets sorted out. It's when you got a situation like this, as you mentioned, with the nano coming through onto Tsuko, you kind of want to be able to respond to that kind of thing, and the 5000 ping is not going to allow you to do that, so we'll have to wait until that gets all sorted out. But yeah, so far with this defense, it has been quite strong. When you look at just how the fights have been going, they have been winning those fights on the ground, but because they just haven't really dealt with Tsukuyomi or Woojing, they've just been allowed to just keep on flying around it. They've been able to backcap them at least 2/3 of this point. So it's one of those situations where, like, yeah, you're winning the fights, but you're losing the war.
Absolutely, and at this point in time, they're in very bad. They're in a very risky position here, and a lot of potential of completely losing it. Flying Luigi is going to have to do a quick 180 and get that defensive black hole up there to try and eat some of those nano boosted rockets that are about to be raining down. He's not going to have a lot of time to react for that one, but at the same time, he is going to have more time than he normally would have. It's an opportunity there, but who knows how much longer that usage of that ability is going to last. They need to get into cover before they get melted by these rockets.
Well, it is a bit of a long-range shot as Suku does end up coming, or starts firing them from so far away, but because of the nano boost was on there, they do end up getting a kill onto Ryazor. As Dank is going to be the next one to go down. Nice kill there. Iowawa on the Ana. We didn't really mention it at the start of this round. We've been seeing him so often on that Baptiste, but with the switch over to the Ana has worked out quite nicely for themselves. They do end up winning the fight in the long run, and that is going to be the first point picked up for the side of 4Giver. As we're coming into the second point, we'll see whether or not the Pharah is going to be as useful. It's a little bit more claustrophobic for that style.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be looking to try and snowball this one. They want to get the early advantage here while they've got the ultimates online before the defense can get entrenched. But Jasper just puts a round into Suku's dome there, and that is going to deny that snowball potential. Wujing gets picked up as well. This is exactly what ADSL2 Plus needed. And now look at the aggression coming out as they try and chase down the remaining members.
Yeah, they do manage to get a good kill onto Iowawa, and that is, as you mentioned, just going to stall this out just a little bit longer. There's still 4 minutes left on the clock, so every little second is going to help out in the long run, but yeah, it's not going to be the easiest of defense or offenses, to be quite honest. This point can be a little bit contentious, depending on how the momentum ends up playing out. Usually, Assault is like, well, if you can capture the first point and then roll that through to point B, then you're usually in a pretty good spot to clean it up. But if it does get ground down into a situation like this where you get bunkered out, and it can be a little bit rough to make your way towards the point. But here we go. Here comes a Valkyrie coming in from Wujing as a lot of ultimates are being clicked left, right, and center. Jasper tries to come in with the Death Blossom, but gets cleaned up immediately. Marker does get a kill, a return kill onto Iowawa. So that's the Ana going to be out of the fight as Hanzo gets cleaned up thanks to the Flux. Just setting up the shot there for Dank as the defense in a great position to hold on here as Marker is just cleaning up the rest of the fight.
Yeah, that was really, really good comeback there from ADSL2 Plus. It was touch and go when Jasper committed the Death Blossom and got immediately slept there. But interestingly, Iowawa, despite just getting some big value from that sleep, actually going to be swapping over to the Moira here. So they're obviously thinking that they do need to change things up, and the Coalescence is very powerful as it does penetrate those shields. So I can't fault the decision, even if the Ana did just bail them out of that previous fight.
Well, they do have another tool to try and deal with the Death Blossom, with Somnam moving over to the McCree. They do have the flashbang. Oh, it's here comes a great positioning there. Tsukiyomi just picks up several members with that missile barrage. Just gets cleaned up thanks to Jasper, but let's see how much more they're going to be able to get out of that. With only Jasper on the table left on this defense, they have to be very careful about how they play out the rest of this point. They go all in to try and get the resurrection onto Tsukiyomi. It does work, but they end up losing Iowawa for it. They do end up cleaning up the rest of the defense, or a few of the straggling defenders there on ADSL2 Plus. Here comes the shifting composition as the hamster does come through to try and slam people around and make a bit of a nuisance of themselves, but this is one of the issues that can really arise here on second point on Hanamura. If you don't get the knockout blow, they just keep on going back for more.
Yeah, and so we will see ADSL2 Plus take control of this point, but a lot of progress given up there, 74% on the clock. They do have a bit over 90 seconds remaining to get the full cap here, and the ultimate rotation is about to come through again. So 4Giver about to have a lot of tools coming online. ADSL2 Plus not exactly short on tools of their own, but Royal Rice quite a ways off that sound barrier, and that could be absolutely crucial for answering some of this aggression that's going to be coming in.
Yeah, and here comes... Well, actually, Jasper's got the flank there with the Reaper. Coalescences on both sides. Oh, alright. Tsukiyomi just... Alright, Tsukiyomi just gets to the point. Win again!
Just caps. Okay.
Alright, we just had this Farah just backcapping. Alright. I guess that's just how we're playing this map here. We have all this talk about, alright, so how is this fight going to play out? We have these ultimates, we have all these variables, and it's like, nah, it's done. We're done. The round's done. Alright. Didn't expect that to go that way.
Nope.
And now, ADSL2 Plus, gotta be scratching their heads, like, how did they let that one happen multiple times over the course of that round? They lost, I guess, a point's worth of progress, an entire point's worth of progress just from Tsukuyomi backcapping.
I have no words. I have no words. Suku is obscene on Farah. Someone should definitely sign him. That's all I can say.
How does no one look in that direction? It's like, our cap is currently being capped. Should we do something about that? It's like, nah, the fight is on the way, so we need to deal with that. But yeah, that's one of the things with these styles of compositions with the Farah and a lot like this heavy ground army that 4Giver has been playing with. There's too many things to deal with. You're either dealing with the ground army and getting blasted by the Farah, or you're trying to deal with the Farah and then the ground army just decimates you thanks to Somnam on this Bastion or whatever hero they're going to be on. So it's a really hard situation to be put into. But ADSL2 Plus, they're just seem like they're crumbling under the pressure at this point, because if they don't end up getting a full cap here, we are done here. Yeah,
we are absolutely done here. And, well, the pressure is once again on. We're seeing a bit of a different look here from ADSL2 Plus. This might be what they need. They're going to the Sombra Genji, and this is really good. It's a vintage, but it is tried and true against the Bastion. It's a comp that plays for ultimates. You build up that EMP blade, and then you just unleash it. And it's incredibly effective here. Suku, well, Suku doesn't really care. And that is the big problem with this composition, is that there isn't a good answer to Suku in the sky. But if you can win the ground game decisively, that's all you need to do. And ultimately, this first fight, it's not a big deal that it's gone over this way, because it's all about the ultimates. It's all about building up that EMP, Blade, and Nano Boost. So ADSL2 Plus, they don't mind losing that fight. That's not part of the game plan. If they can win the fight, sure, great. But they are playing for the ultimate push here.
Yeah, already the tank has gone down, and yeah, it's not looking too good. I mean, the idea is there, as we've been talking about. The classic dive does, well, theoretically do well onto that Bastion, as I say, as the Genji gets cleaned up. But with the addition of Baptiste, with those immortality fields, can kind of just ignore a lot of that with that immortality field and just the extra healing. So, and all of the extra shielding, thanks to the Orisa, the Sigma. It's really tough to try and blast through, and it's vintage for a reason. It doesn't necessarily work all that well in the current meta. We'll see if they're going to be able to get it to really work, because as you mentioned, once they do get those ultimates online, maybe they can get some big combo to really work for themselves. But already Rizor is going to get cleaned up. Somnam getting the first kill of the fight. Marker just not really getting it to work on the Genji, as even though they're losing the fights, they're just not really getting much of the ult charge that they really need. Sure, they've got an EMP, they've got a nano, but they need the blade, they need the explosion.
Yeah, Maka has had a lot of trouble trying to get the damage through, and it's because of those shields, as you said. A lot harder to get the long-range shuriken poke that you used to be able to do. Maka needs to get that ultimate online. He's trying to get the free damage here. They want to be able to do the push on the next fight. They don't want to give up another team fight trying to get that ready. And so they will be looking to build it up here. At 93%, Maka is getting very close, which means Jasper probably going to start the infiltration now, trying to get that position, because it is all on that EMP. You have to catch the Bastion. But as you can see, the Baptiste not playing near the Bastion.
Yeah, and we'll see how, well, whether or not the weight of ultimates are going to come, or which one is going to come out on top. The kill has already come in onto Somnam, and that is going to be the Bastion out of the way. And with Wu Jing getting cleaned up as well, they're in a great position, but never mind. Tsukuyomi comes in from up high with that missile barrage and cleans out the rest of the fight. It was looking so good for ADSL2 Plus, but then Tsukuyomi, ever the hero, comes in and cleans out the rest of that offense. And with only 40 seconds left on the clock, and essentially their big shotgun blast used,
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard. I mean, they've got defenders coming in at a very straggling pace, which might work out in their favor. They still have a fair way to go. Wu Jing does manage to get the resurrection, but gets killed for it. Marco gets the kill there to make sure of that. And yeah, even though the shotgun blast was used and it was looking a little bit iffy, I think the Winston does manage to keep themselves alive. They are looking to cap this first point, but they are going to be very little on time and resources coming into the second point.
Yeah, I have to say I really like how 4Giver played that one. They played very spread out to make sure that EMP couldn't get a lot of people. When you're put in the position where it's EMP the Bastion or EMP the Baptiste, you have to pick the Baptiste, but it does mean the Bastion is alive to inflict a bloody toll upon the team. Now they're in on the second point trying to get the snowball on this, and it is working out, and they pick up 3-4 quick kills here. They may just be able to make this happen as this keyboard man alone here on the point does get lasered down. 2 ticks of progress now. Hanzo comes in on the wrecking ball, but the Sombra is there to answer it. And it's going to be on the brink now. Jasper drops the EMP even as they get stuck with the pulse bomb. And so all of this pressure coming out, it is still everything coming in favor of ADSL2+. And it looks like Dive might be alive and well after all, because they are on the brink of pushing this one through. The stall is good though. Hanzo again on the wrecking ball here, and the Sombra is not on hand to hack him out of that. Sombra just arriving back now from Jasper. They're having trouble cleaning this one up quickly. The kill's still overwhelmingly in favor of ADSL2+. Only a matter of time.
Yeah, it definitely is a matter of time, and against all odds, it was looking absolutely just... They were in dire straits for that offense. But yeah, I said it in the first round, one of those things that you can do is just snowball from point A to point B, and if you can get it to work out, that's all you really need, and that's exactly what happened. They didn't get stalled up on that second point in the approach, and they were able to get themselves set up and just completely shut out that defense, and very much against all odds. I was definitely not expecting them to even get that first point, considering how those the first half of that first point went, but I guess this is still alive and well.
When the EMP blade push fails, you give up on them. It's like, that's it, the game's cooked. ADSL2+, their best chance to win this gone, but against all expectations, they managed to push through, cap the first point, cap the second point. They now have the advantage in time bank. Weird as it is to say, but still, they're still looking down the barrel here. They still have their back to the wall. 4Giver, they've got another chance to break through here, and given how difficult it has been to stop the 4Giver offenses, there is so much pressure now on ADSL2+. They need to try and avoid giving up any progress here so that they have a genuine chance of taking Hanamura.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be giving up that easy progress that Tsukuyomi was able to get the previous time around. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll be very aware of all the shenanigans from that Pharaoh coming in from those awkward angles, as Jasper is going to be just waiting for the approach from the offense, as the rockets are going to be able to start coming through. A great grab there from the Orisa to try and force him down onto the ground. Market gets a good kill onto Somnam, but the return fire from Rizal is doing good work. Resurrection does come through, but with the defense is going to be brought all the way back. They get forced back to the point, and the rest of the ground army is doing a great job in cleaning up the defense. Flying Luigi's is trying to do as much as they can. The tanks are doing all that they can, but it's not nearly enough. A very clean fight there for the side of 4Giver. Gives them the first point.
Absolutely, and we see it once again. There's an early kill on a member of 4Giver, but Wu Jing is there to bring it back. It really is 6v7. I cannot give Wu Jing enough praise for their incredible Mercy play, because it really has been just top-notch here, and it's making everything so much harder for ADSL2+.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can get a similar play to work out on this next this first approach to this second point. The previous round, Jasper was able to get an early kill onto the pharmacy and completely stuff them in their approach. Whether or not it'll work here, as they make their way towards the point. We're coming in from all these different angles. The rest of the ground army from the center. Meanwhile, the pharmacy is still up high and dry, as Wu Jing doing a decent amount of work with the healing, trying to dart in and out. Here comes the coalescence to keep the rest of the team nice and healthy, as they do manage to get themselves to the point, as we are now into overtime. as they are trying to get the fight in their favor. Coalescence is on both sides. Here comes the engagement, but a good barrage from up high. Gets one down, but the return kill from Jasper is going to try and help them out. Actually didn't even mention the shift over to the Tracer, but Gravity Flux is trying to bring as many people into the skies as possible, as they have removed everyone from the point, and there's no one left around, and with only a minute on the clock, they were able to force their way through and grab the second point.
4Giver are OP. Please no. That's all I can say.
They're pretty damn good.
They're pretty good. Like, they've come into this as the number 2 seed, not number 1, but their team play is just incredible. They know their strategies, they execute them so well, and it's so hard to deal with because, as we said earlier, it's not what everyone else is playing. You don't get a chance to practice with 4Giver, and they are just phenomenal. How do you deal with it? That continues to be the question. And now, with just under 2 minutes on the clock, ADSL2 Plus are in the unenviable position of needing to do a repeat of their last fight of the previous stage. They need to fully cap both A and B to keep their hopes alive in the series, and if they really want to get the advantage here, they need to try and do it in basically one push each so they can finish with over a minute left on the clock.
Yeah, they don't have the same amount of time that they did in their previous push to save up all of those ultimates with a dive composition that was just running headfirst into a meat grinder time and time again. They just don't have the luxury of that time to make a similar approach. So they just go back to what has been a little bit more standard as of late, utilizing the Mei to try and wall off some of those angles to try and give them a bit of a safer approach. See how it goes as they start to make their way towards the point. Standard setup here on defense for the side of 4Giver. Rocks being thrown around, a little bit of a crowd control there, didn't really work out. But as the wall did help them get to a bit of a higher position, they still aren't really dealing with that barrier as of yet. As they do get knocked towards the point, we'll see how the rest of the fight is going to play out. As a lot of damage is being laid across. Somnam is kept nice and safe throughout all of this. They have almost got a single tick on this first point, as the wall is going to keep them nice and keep them away, but Tsukiyomi is in a great position, picks up 2, picks up a 3rd. He's going to pick up even more as Kibbleman is getting in on the action, as that is going to absolutely shut out that offense. And with only a minute left on the clock here, Peronas, they are going to be a little bit desperate coming into this next push.
Definitely. They are not in a great position. Rysel does have the Coalescence online that could help if they can get some extra sources of damage on that Bastion. Maybe, just maybe, they can wear it down. The Coalescence alone is not going to be enough. They need to be able to at least get the Reaper or Mei to be helping out with that as well. So, not an easy position to deal with at all. Meanwhile, Suko in the sky as well. Coalescence in from Rysels now. They're putting the pressure on. They're trying to do something, but here comes the charge once more as the Bastion goes into configuration tank mode.
Yeah, and also the Amplification Matrix is doing a lot of work and helping a lot of that damage and the healing come through to that front line. Roy Rice is going to be the first one clean up in this fight. Dank is removed as well, and that's one of the shields out of the way. They do remove Jasper. That is a decent chunk of the damage. Flying Luigi's the hero for ADSL2 Plus has been removed from the fight, and with that, it is looking real bad on offense here for the side of ADSL2 Plus. Looks like 4Giver, they are going to be able to clean out the rest of this fight. They clean out the map, they clean out this series, they clean out this tournament, as 4Giver are the Champions Gauntlet winners.
Absolutely. 4Giver are your Gauntlet champions, and what an incredible performance we've seen from them here. They have looked absolutely unstoppable here. There is no surprise. This team has been together for a while now. We've seen them make finals of Open Div before multiple times, and it may be a bit of time until they have an opportunity to try and push further in towards the path to pro, but they are looking like a strong contender nonetheless, if tonight is any indication of what they can do. So definitely a very strong side and a very hard-earned victory on their part.
Yeah, and even though it does, the scoreboard does say it's a 4-0 over to the side of 4Giver, ADSL2 Plus made them work for it in a lot of those instances. They pushed them all the way. I mean, we look at King's Row, they had to go for an extra round just to try and settle that one. We saw in Hanamura, they were pushing to extra rounds, especially off the back of that incredible dive performance from them on that offense. So not to take away from ADSL2 Plus, it's just every time they were put into situations where Tsukuyomi was able to play their style unabated, they just didn't necessarily have the answers. They had to essentially hit them with these sucker punches to really get those advantages, and they were not able to land the lightning didn't strike twice, I guess I could say, for ADSL2 Plus.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the plans that eventually work out for them involve ultimates, and then they get put into a situation where they don't have the time to go for the same plan again, and unfortunately they just don't come up with any reliable answer. With that, that will be the end of the series here and the end of the tournament. There is one thing left to do before we wrap up, and that is, of course, to name our MVP for the match.
Oh, I mean, we've mentioned them an awful lot, but it's really hard to look past even like just the pharmacy duo of Woojing and Tsukuyomi, because they both were incredibly pivotal in swinging a lot of those fights. We talk about Tsukuyomi and just the way in which just his hero pool essentially dictated the meta of this series, but also because of the Pharah, the Mercy is usually not too far behind, and Woojing was absolutely incredible. We're talking about it consistently throughout this series, but it's really it's
every
hard to
time
not talk up about them.
No, every time 4Giver lost a person, the res was there. There were almost no team fights in which the res was not used to bring someone back if someone went down at all. I can count the number of times that Woojing wasn't able to res probably on one hand. And that really shows that Woojing is a very good Mercy at getting those reses, getting away with it, and the whole team is really good at setting up and making space for those to come through as well. Ultimately, it's not something you can do in isolation, and 4Giver, they really show their stuff here tonight. They have put on an incredible performance, and as a result, they will be crowned our champions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that's all from us here tonight, as we are going to end up closing out this chapter. As you mentioned, 4Giver are going to be the winners of AOE Sports, the Champions Gauntlet. Thank you, everyone, for sticking by over the course of these, I believe it was like 10 weeks or so of gameplay over the past couple of months. And thanks, everyone who has been involved in keeping the show running, all the admins and all that kind of stuff. All the various casters have been working each week to bring you some of the action. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun to do this. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Stay tuned on all of the various social medias of all the various orgs and stuff for when more action is going to be popping up, because there's definitely going to be more Overwatch in the future. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.